Hey, I'm Max. I'm just a photographer, a landscape one. Hope to be more professional along the ways. And, well, today we're going to be doing some editing. So, hope you enjoy. And hopefully, this will keep being a thing. So, just stick around and enjoy the process of how I go through things. So, right here, we have a photo of an American flag. And this was in the lands of Colorado. It was kind of towards the ranch area where the mountains were in the distance. I was like kind of near Telluride, and I saw this on the way when I was driving, and so it really caught my eye just because of the mountains in the background, the flag in the midpoint, and this little cow just right here along the curve. Just get a little bit of a distinction. So what I go through first is if I can crop it. And again, this is from a car, so you can see that little wind mirror was right there. So I just want to crop it a little so the mountains kind of look a little more centered. Again, I'm looking at the horizons, and that's a little right there. I'm kind of lining up with that flag in that point, so it looks more straight on. So first thing after that is we go into basic. What I do with basic is I would occasionally just hit auto and see if it can really do its magic and, do some autoing. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to adjust the blacks. So right here where the blacks are, I'm going to really bring it out just to that edge. Whites, I'm going to bring them a tad big. I'm looking at the sky right here and also the mountains. Highlights, I'm really checking the sky right here. We can edit that more, but I'm really balancing that between the mountains and the sky as well as some of the snow that's on this hill right here. And then with shadows, this one's a little tricky because these cows are a little tad dark. Let me see if I can zoom in on them. So again, with shadows, I'm not sure if I'm able to bring out any of that because they are underexposed. So they're just little shadows of cows. So once we get all of that dandy, I'm gonna add a little bit of a dehaze because it was a little hazy day. We don't want it too HD because then it just feels very overdone, redundant. So we're just gonna do that. Want to make that flag. Let me make that flag really nice and just showing off. Gonna add a little bit of clarity, just a hair. And then for texture, we don't really need it, but again, it's always nice adding a little bit here. So once we got all the basic things done, that's pretty good. Now for tone curve, this is when you really want to get more advanced and very nitpicky. I only use this a little bit just to adjust a certain area. So let's say I want to adjust the shadows right here, bring the grass up, bring some of this out a little, bring the clouds down, just little small things like that. You don't have to do extreme because extreme is just, let me provide an example. There's extreme, you don't want that. So all right, after that's done, I like to go into the color wheel, and usually what I do is sometimes I'll just mess with the colors and I'll see like, oh, that red looks a little too, red or too yellow. So right now it's actually a really good red. So we're just going to bring that down to 0. Oranges, there is actually a little bit of orange that's on the grass because of how the some of the grass is a little orange slash yellow because, it's a little dry. But again, we can mess with that. And so what I like to do is I like to bring out a little bit more of the greens. So I'm going to change the hue of the yellow and lean it towards the greens and just have it like that. Same with the yellow orange. We just want it a little more fresh. So that's all fine and dandy. Aqua, we're going to see what that affects just for fun. Blues, that affects basically the entire from the mountainscape and the skies. We're not going to touch that. Purples, actually purple affects right there, right where that flag is. So we're just going to give it a little bit just for fun. And that's all perfect. Next, we go to saturation. Again, I want that blue to really be nice and crisp, but once I do it for that, it's going to affect all the other blues, so we're just going to bring it a little tad bit. We can adjust that later, of course. So now, greens. Greens are, greens are already looking good, but because this isn't really green, it's more of a yellow, so what we can do is kind of change it accordingly. And there you go, it's a lot more green. Reds, we want to see if that flag can really show off. Just gonna bring it nice and sharp red, a really sharp red, because, you know, land of the free. I don't know why I brought that up, but anyways. Luminance, this is just to see how bright something can be, so I'm actually not sure. I can have it nice and bright or really dark, but probably a little brighter for the greens. We're just going to bring that a little down to give us some, just a little bit of distance in the drawback. For the yellows, we're actually going to bring that down. For the blues, we're going to bring that a little down so you can actually see the sky. And, well, let's bring it back right there. You can also use the keyboard if you want, just to adjust the, very fine-tune it by either a hair or things like that. I'm just rambling at this point, but you get my point. So after that, we can go color grading. Color grading, that's basically if you really want to highlight the midtones or the lows or the highs, so you can just really make it look like it was a cool day. But I usually don't mess with this too often because, again, I kind of like to have the photo of how I viewed it when I was there, so I'm trying to vision what it was like when I took the photo. Details, now you can do a little bit of sharpening, you can do a little bit of denoising. This was at roughly ISO 200, f5.6 at 1,000th of a second, so everything's going to be sharp. Like, we can zoom up all the way to this mountain, and even though it's pixelated, is just, you can see the sharp pixels right there. Again, I could go on the flag, and it's looking fine and dandy. I can pretend to denoise it, but it's not really going to do anything because, again, it's just a matter of they're all far away, so we don't really need to denoise. So this is one I've began to use now, and it's the profile correction on lenses. So because we have the metadata, the Lightroom Classic can easily pick it up and it'll actually readjust it. So that is after, and then let's go to before. And it really just warps it just a tad bit to a more flat image overlay, which I usually never use, but I'm beginning to use it now and I've actually quite enjoyed it. So transform, that's basically cropping or small little updates. Effects, that's something about giving it a grainy look. And we can really like make it show that it's really old, like take it back in the day. And honestly, I quite like that a little bit, but maybe if it was for a different overall feel, but let's just zero that out. So highlight priority, we can make it really nice and shiny. We can also make this look like a postcard if we want and just say greetings from Colorado. But again, we want the main photo to be, you know, like, we want it to be ready. Like, you want to be able to print this out and you can use it for anything you want. So even if it's a postcard, even if it's just for your portfolio, Instagram, whatever. I always try to make that my key point as well. So we can add a little bit of a vignette. I sometimes do it. I just reset it. So once that's all fine and dandy, everything's looking nice and crisp. Now we go into the masking. Masking is step number 2. Third step is basically just checking it over and looking everything from top to down. So first things first, we're going to bring out the masking. We're going to look at the sky. So Lightroom has been able to do its AI algorithms and all these little shebangs in the computer where we can really mess with the sky. So it kind of did a good job, but it got some of the mountains. So what we're going to do is we're just going to brush it over like so. And just make sure that the mountain is not in the sky, because these are two different obstacles. And this is just a quick brushing. I'm going to make the brush a little bigger so we can really get rid of any excess of highlights on the mountain. And that's perfect. We can really go right here if we want and just get rid of that. All right, now we can get into we don't want curves, we want to dehaze it a little more because this is the sky. So we can really like dehaze it because the sky is always going to be hazy no matter what, especially on a sunny day and the clouds were just gleaming with joy. And what we can do is we can really bring it out the saturation of those blues. We don't want it too blue. We bring out the blacks just a hair. Bring on the whites just a smidge. shadows. There's barely any shadows, but we're actually going to boost it for that little segment right there. So again, that's perfect. Now we're going to get on to the second layer, which is going to be the mountains. Now, what we can do is we can really simplify this and just do a quick radial gradient and just bring that right there. Just be right there. Have it on that mountain. And then we can probably duplicate this and bring out another and just put it right over here. Make it smaller or not too big. And like that, like that. And all we can do is we can bring down the blacks actually. And we're gonna boost the clarity because we want these mountains to be, you want to be able to see that sharpness, you know, like you knew it was sharp when you saw those mountains. Let's be real here. So just gonna bring up the mountains like that with the whites. Maybe a little bit of contrast just to, no, that's way too much. So that's perfect right there. All right, that's the second layer done. Third layer, we're probably gonna do this hillside right here, and we're just gonna do, what should we do actually? Honestly, we're just gonna do the same thing, a really big gradient, and this is really gonna take up basically everything but that flag. That flag, we gotta make sure we can get rid of it. So we're just gonna hopefully let the computer detect it, and it's going to get rid of it. Perfect, that's exactly what we want. So for this one, we're just going to leave everything in place for now. I'm just messing around right here. I'm trying to see what can fit, what doesn't fit, and yada yada yada. So how's the haze? That's way too much. All right, so no, honestly, why? That's a little too blue. So we're gonna bring up the color temp to a yellow tint and go from there to there. Just adjust it accordingly. So that's really good. All right. And then our last one, this one's gonna be a quick, real linear gradient. We're just gonna bring this up from the closest to the camera, and all we're gonna do is we're gonna boost up the saturation so that way the green here just slowly fades off into the distance. And let's just keep mitigating. We can also do a little color temperature trick to make it even more vibrant. And you can actually see that little small river area. Maybe that's where that cow was drinking at the time. So that's the photo. Right now we can check everything. We could double check the cropping. What we can also do is we could do a little aspect and grab it from this point. Oh goodness me, no. Whoops. What we could do is we could do the angle. There we go. And we could just grab it like so. And honestly, it's really hard to tell what is circular and what is the level, because it's hard to tell, honestly, if you were to look at it from my eye. But right, that's the final photo of everything. Again, now that everything's been fine-tuned and it's a little too saturated, we're just gonna bring it back a little and bring down the vibrance, because you know, sometimes you get a little carried away. But here's gonna be a before and after. So here's before, and again, like, you couldn't, those mountains with that hill, they were just blending into the background. The only thing that stood out was the flag, and now it's like you can kind of see the yellows in the hills, the blues in the mountains, and the green. So green, yellow, blue. So it's a little combination, and you know, I kind of like that. It kind of highlights the flag in the background. It's just, you know, a way of life over there, and compared to where I live right now, it's entirely different fields. So it really gives you like an insight of how different people live throughout the states or in the world generally. So that's what I enjoy about traveling. But again, hopefully I didn't ramble on too much and you guys enjoyed looking into how I edit things, and hopefully with the more that I come, I can provide a little more stories on the photographs that I do, and maybe I'll do some behind the scenes on things like that. So stick around and I hope you enjoy.